Hey, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of OPA to OPM. My name is Day Mill. You can find me on YouTube and Instagram at Railway to Success with my partner Alex. So where can they find you?
Yes, sir. So this is Alex. You can catch me on Instagram at underscore AJ the one. So it's AJTHE and the number one.
And today we have a guest. Today, this is a very special guest. Let me introduce my guest. We have a special guest on our podcast. Darryl Webster is a licensed clinical social worker and therapist with over 30 years of experience in treating anxiety and depression. He has a He's also been an entrepreneur and founded a nonprofit organization called Youth Entrepreneurial Services in the early 1990s to mentor and educate young people about entrepreneurship. In addition to this, he is also the founder of his own publishing company and has self-published 2 books, the most recent one being I Thought I Was Going Crazy, Overcoming Stress, Anxiety, and Depression. There has also appeared on several shows, including The Oprah Winfrey Show, CBS Early Show, and several podcasts throughout his career. Recently, he gave a TED Talk with Ted Foggy Bottom titled, What Can Depression Teach You? We are thrilled to have him on our show tonight and appreciate your presence. How you
Thank you.
doing,
Thank you.
Daryl?
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey man, great. I appreciate you guys both for having me here. I'm honored to be on your program.
Thank you, thank you. The pleasure is all of ours. We gave you a quick bio, a quick summary but introduce yourself. You said I see you've been a clinical licensed therapist for 30 years.
Yes, 30 years. Very important work, as you guys all too well know. Mental health is a big issue around the country. Suicides and other types of mental health challenges are on the rise. And since this show is about entrepreneurship and business, I can imagine because of inflation and many other types of business related failures around the country, I'm sure people starting up with their own businesses are struggling because money's tight. People who are purchasing products and services don't have the funds to buy products. I even learned during COVID a number of just a high number of people failed in business. Not only startup business entrepreneurs, but people who had existing businesses just in the DMV area. I know you guys too well know down in the downtown district, tons of businesses are closing down. And so as it
Exactly.
relates to mental health, it's important that you have a forum like this to give entrepreneurs and those who have been in business for many years some strategies and tools how they can weather the storm during these very difficult times. So I'm glad to be on the show tonight to be able to give your listeners some strategies from someone who's been in this field for a very long time.
And I appreciate it. We both appreciate you.
Yeah, greatly, greatly. Because there's like you said, there's so many businesses that have failed. Like I remember one point, it seemed like COVID, where it was just like every other door was just getting shut down because people are trying to manage their life, but manage their finances, manage their business in itself, and it really took a toll on a lot of people. In addition to just being remote, like a lot of people just aren't talking about that isolation to not be in their environment anymore. So I think this is something I'm actually really excited for because there's as we go more into like seasonal depression, this is what a lot of people want to really be interested in.
Exactly, exactly.
And Alex, right?
Yes, sir.
Alex, yeah, Alex, you mentioned during COVID, the isolation. Isolation and loneliness is one of the number one causes of depression and anxiety around the world and in this country. And I can imagine if you're an entrepreneur starting a business, that can be a very isolated journey and road to travel. Starting a business, for some people, the funds may not be there. Working long hours away from your family and friends, being passionate about what you really want to do and expecting things to launch in a certain way, and then here comes the adversity. So people have to be reminded that as an entrepreneur, even as an existing business owner, when adversity sets in, when things don't go as planned, you have to have a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset. You have to have a mindset that this too shall pass, and then you have to have some strategies in place to maintain your mental health, such as obviously exercising is a great one, mindfulness, being able to just sit still, get in contact with the body. One of your questions you guys had sent me was, how do entrepreneurs know when they're at risk of burnout or stress. And well, there are a number of telltale signs.
That was our
Some
first
of them
question. I'm glad
include,
you
yeah, and
segued right into it.
some of them include, as I said, mindfulness. And what does the mindfulness mean? It means sitting down with your body in a non-judgmental way, looking and examining your body, something called the body scan, just sitting still from your head to your toe, paying attention to what's going on in your body. Sometimes people have heart attacks and they're not even aware that the telltale signs or the initial signs are taking place in their body because they're so busy running on empty.
Hmm.
Particularly entrepreneurs and people in business, they're so busy trying to launch that business and get that business off the ground. They're not taking time to take care of themselves. And so we all have to be mindful of taking care of ourselves. Exercise, mindfulness, eating right, making sure you're taking time to be with friends and family. You can't always just, burn the candle at both ends to the point of burnout.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point because a lot of times as entrepreneurs or people who are trying to aspire to be that, you're kind of taught like, yeah, you got to grind, 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 and just hit the pavement running all the time. You got to be on all 10 cylinders at all the time, and it's there's not enough discussion about, hey, take that time to really just understand what's going on inside your brain, what's going on inside your body, what's going on inside your spirit, to really just understand those telltale signs. And again, we're just like really always on that grind, always just moving, and
Hmm.
it's always a fast pace where you feel as though you can't just slow down.
Okay, let me
Yeah.
ask, let's get into a question since you segue into our first question. But um, what are the mental health and what are some different challenges that entrepreneurs face other than like the regular 9 to 5 professional may face, in your opinion?
As I said before, burnout is a real
Hmm.
issue and challenge for entrepreneurs because they're doing things in a very isolated, autonomous way. They don't have sometimes the full support of someone who works for a business who has all the different ancillary types of supports that go along with that. So burnout, being isolated,
Hmm.
trying to do things without a support staff or a group of people around you that believes in your passion and in your business. And also as an entrepreneur, it can be a very lonely road having an idea or business that you believe in wholeheartedly, but other people may scoff at what you're trying to do. And so sometimes that can be very disheartening and very stressful as well because you're passionate about it. You believe in it. You tell your friends and family. And some people, they've laughed at me when I've had business ideas and because they didn't think it would work. And so I want people to remember, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're out there launching a business, believing in your passion, don't tell everyone what you're trying to do because some people can be a deterrent. They could say things that could stop you from really achieving your goals. And the reason why they do that, in my opinion, because they don't think they can do it themselves. So it's easy to put someone else's dream down and passion down when they don't believe in themselves. And I say to anyone with a dream and a passion to go for it, to go for it. Don't let anyone stop you from what I call letting your dream go into the landfill of dreams. The
Hmm.
landfill of dreams. And what is that? That's something I've created a metaphor for. Any dream that you let go unused, unpursued, it will go into the landfill of dreams, a place where all the never dreams never get used, never come to fruition because you doubted yourself, because you let the naysayers stop you from achieving your dreams. Yes, it's hard in the beginning to get it off the ground, but don't stop. Just continue to go forward. Never, never, never give up.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point is that a lot of times when you tell people exactly what your plans are, they start projecting and displacing on you
Exactly.
and saying, hey, maybe I feel insecure about this thing, so I'm just going to project onto you. And I don't think that's going to work. So for people who are facing those kind of things and that isolation, those times what they're trying to get into, into their business, what are some coping mechanisms that you would suggest for that person to kind of get over that hump?
Coping mechanisms. One, as in any endeavor we try to achieve in life, one has to have a positive mental attitude. One has to really believe in the undertaking that they're undertaking, and also surround themselves and create a mastermind group of people, mentors who they can bounce ideas off of. As you can see behind me, I just have a plethora of books what they call, for me, bibliotherapy, or just reading about other successful entrepreneurs, learning about people who maybe they're doing what you're trying to do, people who can inspire you, but most importantly, maintaining that high level of confidence and fidelity with your goal and not giving up. But for me, it's always been maintaining a positive mental attitude. In my library, I have a book called Think and Grow Rich. It's a classic book. Anybody that's an entrepreneur should have that book. It has 17, I think, principles, success principles that one should adapt and use when it comes to being an entrepreneur. And it has many stories, case examples of successful people. And then there was a newer version of it called Think and Grow Rich, a black choice, that was published and written by Napoleon Hill Foundation, written by Dennis Kimbrough. So to answer your question, surround yourself with positive people, maintain a positive attitude, negate the negative types of thoughts that get bombarded at you. Stay away from vexatious, negative people who are trying to knock down your dreams. Create positive affirmations for yourself. When you go to bed at night, you should be sending messages to your subconscious mind of what you can achieve, because right before we fall off to sleep, our subconscious mind is at a very receptive state to be able to receive whatever type of dream you're trying to manifest and bring into fruition. So right before you fall asleep and right before you wake up in the morning, feed your subconscious mind the images, visualizations, expectations of things you're trying to do, because that creates like a magnet. You know, you talk about the law of attraction, that will attract to you people, places, and things that you want to bring into your life that can help you manifest your business.
And I want to add to that real quick. I don't mean to cut you
Go
off.
ahead.
I am a firm believer of that because lately, for the past 2 nights, and I think everything happens for a reason, maybe subconsciously, as when you told me the guest that we're about to have, I was like, all right, cool, I need to start changing stuff up. So at night, when I go to bed, what I do is I go to YouTube and I put on nightly affirmations or something like that. So that's playing in the background for like 2, 3 hours as I start drifting to sleep into my REM. And man, it's a world of difference.
Man, I might need to try that. All right, so Doc, so as an entrepreneur, as starting out as an entrepreneur, or for ones who have been entrepreneur for years, how do you balance that work-life balance, in your opinion, being as since you're an entrepreneur as yourself?
That's a good question. As you guys know, everyone's situation is unique. Everyone's family, everyone's personal life, everyone's circumstances is unique. Finding that workplace balance is something that one needs to figure out how to do. I had a client the other day who had saw something on social media where the person was saying it's unfair for entrepreneurs to look at successful, high achieving entrepreneurs and compare their pathway to success with those. The person who had put out the social media feed was saying how in the beginning, when you're starting out, if you don't have a silver spoon in your mouth, someone who can just give you money, seed money to feed into your business, like the rest of us, things are hard and they're difficult. And so in the beginning, you may be spending many, many long hours away from your family and friends, and that throws off that workplace balance because you're trying to launch something. You're spending many hours trying to make it happen. And so this work life balance may be hard to come by in the beginning. I just think, regardless of whatever the dynamic that play out, the individual person has to be aware of their personalities, their temperament, their what they call it's called your threshold of tolerance when it comes to stress. You got to know where's your threshold of tolerance, and if your work life balance is being overconsumed with time in your business and you are starting to feel those symptoms of stress where it's exceeding your threshold of tolerance, then that's when you need to like slow it down and bring some balance to your situation. And so obviously every person is different, and only the individual who's feeling what they're feeling can step back, recalibrate, and move forward in a more healthy, productive way.
And
Go ahead.
and it's something that I think is growing. right? Where we start comparing ourselves to social media presences and influencers and people who, because I for one, right, I'm gonna say it from my vantage point, and I can't speak for anybody else. 26, I drive my dream car, I live in a penthouse, and to some, I have the dream life, right? But even still, with everything that I have, it's not the glow. It's just it is what it is.
Right.
Even with everything I have, I still feel like I'm behind the curve because I'm looking at Twitter and Instagram, and I see somebody who's 19, 15 years old who's got $3 million, and they're like, "Oh, I did it. Anybody can do it." And then you're like, well, why can I be successful? Why aren't I successful? What am I doing wrong? What are the things that I'm looking at and vantage points that I'm looking at that now I have to start going harder. And now you try to start figuring out, all right, well, I need to dedicate more time. And you at a point, you get to a point where you start, excuse me, not being able to detach from work because you're so affixed to that mindset of I'm falling behind.
One of the things we all know, social media has great benefits. We can spread information around the world within minutes that's very meaningful and helpful in terms of various social causes and issues. But in my opinion, as a mental health professional, social media is contributing to a high level of mental illness in this country when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to depression and anxiety because people who are comparing themselves, as you say, Alex, with these YouTubers and other successful people, these kids who are making millions of dollars at social media, and they're looking at them and they're comparing their lives. And that's the worst thing any of us can do is compare ourselves with anyone. So the first thing I would say is stop comparing yourself with anyone. I've recently kind of slowed down my use of social media and just really sit back and try to evaluate the what's necessary for me to look at and what's not necessary. The challenge is when you have young people who are looking up to these other young people and their executive functioning is not fully engaged until the age of 2025, and it could cause a lot of anxiety or depression because now people are going, oh, this guy's 20 and he has three sports cars and he's making 10 million as a YouTuber, and they look at their lives and they get truly, truly depressed because they don't feel they will ever be able to attain that. And that's one of the worst things they can do. And I've also have learned watching news stories about even YouTubers. People are so defined with the social clout that they get from the number of likes they have and the number of viewers they have and the number of whatever fans. So when they lose a large share or even a small share, depending on who they are, I've seen in the last 5 years a high number of YouTubers commit death by suicide. And you go, what is going on? Why are these young people taking their lives? And I would say it's because the the money and the fame and the accolades from all of that attention from so many people, when that dynamic shifts, they don't have the mental capacity to be able to regulate their emotions because they're immature and they just don't have all the resources available to know how to negotiate not only success, but know how to negotiate when the failure and adversity sets in.
Okay. We talked about entrepreneurs facing loneliness, um, but what are some techniques you have for entrepreneurs who are struggling to find like an outlet or support system? How would you go about yeah, just finding a support system?
I would say if you're an entrepreneur and you're spending large amount of time isolated pursuing your business and you find that lifestyle impacting you in an adverse way in terms of your stress, maybe you're having migraines or heart palpitations, maybe you're self-medicating, drinking too much or smoking or
Hmm.
whatever you're doing to try to numb yourself from all the stress associated with being an entrepreneur. We are social creatures. They call our brain the social brain. We need to be together. We all need to take time to commune with each other, with other people. It's needed. We know what that felt like when we went through COVID. People really struggled not being together. Kids struggle not being in school. Kids struggle not seeing their grandparents. Kids struggle not seeing their parents. We struggled not seeing our friends and being together. So to answer your question, I would say entrepreneurs, they could seek out maybe collaborative efforts in terms of social activities, whether it be on the internet, finding, you have groups called Meetup and other groups like that. Try to find a group that's maybe outside of the business realm where you can just go somewhere, relax, and just talk about something non-business related, just to give your nervous system a chance to just feel free from all of the encumbrances of the stresses associated with running your business.
Yeah, no, you brought up a good point. Like going to those meetups, meetup.com, Eventbrite, going to those events and surrounding yourself with people who, your problem may seem like a mountain, but to them is an anthill, and they can kind of guide you through that process and steer you into the right direction of, like you said, a positive mindset, understanding exactly how you can get through that thing. Um, and so I did have a question where it's more about turning those experiences, those failures, right? Because in the book called the Power of a Habit, I think it's Power of Habit, and then also Atomic Habits, taking one habit and then replacing it with another more positive habit can allow you to transition a little bit easier. So, what are your thoughts on some things that you can take, maybe viewed as a negative habit, like you said, drinking, alcohol, weed, or biting your nails, or something where it's just a sign of nervousness to
Porn and things like that. Yeah.
yeah. Because it's draining your energy. Taking that energy and then putting it into something else. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the first thing is taking a mental inventory or life inventory of what you're doing that's not working for you. I mean, doing that type of needs assessment on yourself, and as you say, replacing those very problematic, dysfunctional habits with more pro-social, positive habits. Some of these things are no-brainers. I mean, we know if you're drinking too much, you're smoking too much, eating too much, and your health is declining, then something has to give. And so sit down and maybe take a sheet of paper and put down pros and cons of the things you're doing. And I'll keep coming back to some of the obvious choices in terms of increasing your health, which is exercise, eating right, finding positive people and places to be around, and also being aware of the things you associate with, because maybe you're associating with people when you're around them, you're defaulting to some of the same destructive behaviors they're doing. You go out to a hookah bar or wherever, and if everybody's sitting around getting high, if that's a place where you gotta, when you're stressed, you're likely to indulge, then maybe you need to go to the gym where you can get on an elliptical machine, or go swimming, doing something more healthy. So sitting down and doing that inventory, and as you say, creating just small habits, they multiply over time. It's like compound interest. They say if you take a penny and you multiply it by itself for 30 days, man, you got hundreds of thousands of dollars. Just a small incremental change every day will equate to a bigger benefit. So find a way to create positive lifestyle choices for oneself.
So I do want to push back because not everybody is the same. Like you said, people come from different backgrounds. So for that person who can say, "Oh, that's easy for you to say. You live in a nice neighborhood. You live in a nice area. Things are easy for you. You got all this other extra stuff." Me, I ain't got it like that. I live in a rough area. I don't have all these amenities things. I don't have these meetups around me and stuff. What I see is my reality. So again, I can't do all that stuff. Like I'm not worth, and it's like it's kind of coming from this like I'm not worthy enough to have that. Like, what are your thoughts on somebody who may be in that kind of situation or position?
Alex, that's a great question. Man, I grew up in the hood, Washington D.C., during a time when D.C. was known as Chocolate City. I grew up was raised by my grandparents who were poor. My grandfather only had a fourth grade education. My father wasn't in my life. My mother wasn't around, and I know that life very well. I wasn't a very good student, but one of the things I was very good at was finding mentors and people within that community who could guide me and connect me with resources and places and things that I needed to grow up and thrive and to achieve. And so I say to that cohort of people who are living, who don't have those necessary means and resources, there have been a plethora of people, black and brown people who come from the most impoverished, toughest situations, if you look throughout history, who have taken their adversities and their struggles and they turn it into great wealth, fame, and fortune because it started with the idea and the mindset that I am not going to succumb to my environment. I come from, like me, I used to say I come from the hood, but I'm not going to be of the hood. And I learned to, I had to get outside of that environment that I was in because the environment impacts us in so many ways. And if we allow the, I guess, the things that are going on in our environments that can pull us down to make us a statistic, then we're going to succumb. So, if you look behind me, education, self-education, and mentors is what helped me get to where if I show you my high school transcript, I barely made it out of high school. I've nearly flunked out of high school. When I was in college, George Washington University, I was nearly flunked out, but I got it in my head in my junior year I was not going to fail because my grandfather only had a fourth grade education, and I wanted to be the first one in my family to graduate from college. And what I did, I started applying the success principles that I read about in Think and Grow Rich and other books. And I visualized myself, went from a 1.7 GPA. I said, damn it, I'm going to make the dean's list. And I visualized myself with a 3.0. And it goes to show you the power of visualization and affirmation and expectation. When I did that, all of a sudden, my behaviors and my actions started to flow congruent with the way I was thinking and feeling and acting. And at the end of the semester, my junior year, I went from nearly flunking out to being on the dean's list. And I never will forget the coach coming up to me. He said, "Hey, Darryl, we got a problem." I said, "What's that?" He said, "You're on the dean's list with Steve Frick." Now, Steve Frick was one of my teammates who's now a well-known pediatric doctor in the United States. But I was on the dean's list with him. He didn't think that I earned that 3.0. So I'm saying that to say to any of those people that you're describing, I've been there. They can't escape that environment. But it starts with, it all goes down up here, but you have to go outside of your neighborhood. If you don't have the people there, then you have to go outside of your neighborhood. There are people out here that want to help, that want to make a difference, but they want to help people who want to help themselves. So if you want to help and you seek out people and you have a great attitude or even a half attitude where you demonstrate that you want someone to pull you up, then there are a lot of people out here that will pull you up.
Okay. So mindfulness and self care, they're like really hot, trendy words right now. But how can entrepreneurs practically incorporate these things, like some of these gym and stuff, into their hectic schedule?
I remember some years ago, I can't think of his name. He's an old school entrepreneur. You know who I'm talking about. He wrote a book about yoga and mindfulness. What is his name? His wife was really popular. Had a clothing line. Oh, I can't think of his name. It'll come to me. But anyway, to answer your question, you were saying how can entrepreneurs do what again with mindfulness? Say that
Like
again.
how can they basically incorporate some what am I looking for? Incorporate like good concepts like to the gym and yoga and meditation into their schedule.
Like any habit, you got to start somewhere. If you haven't
Hmm.
been practicing good habits in a long time, tomorrow is a new day. Every
Hmm.
day is a new day to start somewhere new. Mindfulness, you can do it anywhere. Mindfulness is just sitting, or you can lay down somewhere, find a quiet place to close off your mind from the external stresses and noise of the day. The simple definition of it is non-judgmental, moment to moment self-awareness. And why is mindfulness so effective at alleviating and minimizing stress and anxiety? Because mindfulness forces you over time, if you can sit and train your mind to stay in the present moment, it forces you not to think about the past, not to think about the future. It focuses you to stay in the present moment. The Buddha called the mind the monkey mind because the mind is always jumping around. It's either in the past or it's in the future. Well, mindfulness is a great way to begin to control and get that monkey mind in terms of what the Buddha said, to sit still and calm down.
So, okay, give me one sec. Let me plug this.
Give us 1 second, Doc.
Had to make sure we ain't die over here with
Exactly.
the laptop die. So, when we have those moments where we can essentially be by ourselves, that's one thing, right? But when people want to have that support system to go to these events and to make sure that they have that support system, but they just don't know how to go about it, sharing their struggles. Because I was talking to a friend today, and he's like, "Look, I don't know if I even trust a therapist because why am I telling you my problems? You don't care. You're just doing this for a job to earn a paycheck the same way that I'm here trying to do this thing to make my paycheck." So for those people who are kind of hesitant to share their struggles, to share their journey, how do you approach those people to allow them to know that it's one, a safe space, but to show them, hey, that this is something that you can open up to and seek assistance with?
That's a great question. Wayne Dyer, beloved motivational guru, has a wonderful quote. The quote is, "Change the way you look at things, then the things you look at will change. Change the way
Mm.
you look at things, then the things you look at will change." Something to that effect. But what that means, and my interpretation is, the way you're looking at things, if it's not working for you, if your narrative of whether it be therapy or trying to be an entrepreneur, whatever the case. In the case of a therapist, I can only speak for myself and say I'm a therapist. I've been doing this for 30 years. 99.9% of my clients, they will tell you that when they come to me, my intention, and first and foremost, is to support them and help them with a heart from out of a place of love and caring. Yes, it's a job, but I have my clients get my number. They know they can call me at any time. I tell them all the time, I don't care what time of the day. Call me if you're feeling stressed, if you're thinking about hurting yourself. You can call me at any time. My number is available to you. Therapy is something that every person, in my opinion, need. And I'm not saying that because I want people to come in so therapists can make more money. We have enough clients. It's not about that. It's about when I went through my mental health crisis in my 20s, and I had major depression and anxiety disorder and everything one can have when it comes to mental illness in terms of anxiety. I sought out a therapist. And to your point, Alex, the therapist that I sought out, my mom referred me to this person. And I will never forget how this person, who was a psychiatrist, made me feel. I was in the depths of depression, had thoughts of self harm, and I needed a lifeline. And I was only 29 years old. And I went to this person at this person's office, and I have clinical depression. My mind is all over the place. I don't want to live. I'm hopeless. And this guy was doing like this when I met him. He was dozing and
Wow.
falling asleep the whole time. And I
What?
was so devastated because that was my first experience with a mental health professional. And Maya Angelou had a quote: "People won't remember what you said, people won't remember what you did, but people will always remember how you
How you
make them
make them
feel."
feel.
And that person made me feel very unacknowledged and very under cared for. And I left that guy's office that day, and I said, I would never let anyone feel that way. And so when my clients come to me, they know that their issues are first and foremost. And when I'm on this computer meeting with my clients, I never take my eyes off the screen, and they all leave thinking and knowing, wow, this person really does care for me. He really does want to help me. And it's not about a paycheck. It's about me trying to save them from whatever challenges they bring to therapy, me giving them tools and strategies so that they can get on with their life and get over the challenges that they're facing.
Okay. So let's say for the entrepreneur who's open to therapy, what can entrepreneurs expect during their first therapy session? Like, how can they overcome any stigmas or reservations about seeking professional help? Could you hear me, Doc?
Well,
Or
in
Daryl?
terms of the obviously,
Okay.
yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I hear you. Obviously, every therapist is different, and therapists have many different therapeutic types of modalities and interventions that they can employ when working with clients. But and I can't speak for all therapists, but I will say when therapists come to me, what they can expect is someone who really cares for helping them, and it's not about the money. They will receive someone who acknowledges them and what their issues are, someone who's educated and knowledgeable with just a plethora of ways to help them and meet them where they are. Obviously, in the first session, from my experience, I have clients who come in who are very nervous. I'm a stranger to them, even though I'm a professional. And so it's my job to make them feel at ease in that first session. And I think I'm pretty good at that. And the reason why I say that is because I genuinely care. And people are a good judge of character. People know, excuse my expression, when you're bullshitting and when you don't care. And I just believe is the way I was raised by my grandparents. I was raised to be a carer, to be a giver, to be a healer, and that's what I do. And so I would say, anybody dealing with something, don't think that therapy is something that weak people go to. That's another myth that people have, that if you have a mental
Stigma.
health challenge,
Hmm.
that you're weak, that you're crazy, that something's wrong with you. All that stuff is crap, guys. I have where is it? This is my book right here that I wrote about my own personal experience with depression,
Hmm.
called I Thought I Was Going Crazy: Overcoming Stress, Anxiety, and Depression. I wrote this book to destigmatize mental illness because there's so much stigma, particularly in the black and brown community, about mental illness. You're weak, just pray it away.
Hmm.
Some people avoid dealing with their issues because they don't think that anyone can help them. Well, I will tell you from my experience, majority of the people that come into therapy, particularly that I work with, walk away or leave after the end of their particular term, walk away much improved, healed, with tools and strategies that make their lives better. I get texts and emails and calls from clients all the time thanking me, saying, "Wow, thank you so much. What you share with me, what you taught me, really helped me to get over a very difficult time." I really enjoy, I'm telling you guys, saving people's lives. I
Hmm.
get people coming to therapy who some don't want to be here anymore. And nothing brings me pleasure in terms of helping someone else is to be able to be a listening, attuned, listening, caring person
Hmm.
that they walk away knowing, if I have no one else in this world, I ran into this guy in therapy that made me feel my life was worth living, and I'm going to hang in there and I'm going to keep living to another day so that I can do something with my life.
And just to add on to that, right? Because I recently started therapy myself, and I remember my first session with my therapist, man, and it was I didn't know what to expect, right? And I think I told my therapist, man, because we talked about what led up to the things. I was going through a very dark place, like things we covered in past podcasts, uh, going through bankruptcy, business failure, going through a lot of stuff. And I just told my therapist, man, I grew up thinking I was a fuck up, right? Because I didn't have that no one that positive reinforcement. Not much growing up, and so I can definitely recommend therapy, man. I love my therapist, man. I think he's awesome. And so yeah. You have a next question, Alex?
Yeah. So I also went to therapy, and I had a mediocre experience as well. Well, the first one was like it was just something that I went into it with like, all right, well, I'm just as smart as this therapist. I know that they're going to ask me because psychology was one of my favorite subjects. And then I had another one experience where it just wasn't that good of an experience. He would talk and then he would just kind of just sit there and listen and then kind of have this dead silence to
Mm-hmm.
to allow me that open space to speak. But I'm like, No, I know what you're doing. I'm going to play the tune with you. So, for people who are trying to get into therapy or who are thinking about it and just kind of on the fence, some of the things that I have heard when I've advocated for therapy, right? Because even though I had a lackluster experience with it, I still advocate for it. Some of the things that I heard were it's too expensive. My insurance isn't going to cover the full thing. You only get a certain amount of sessions, and then depending on who you get, they're just like it's not going to be a tailored experience to you. They're just there to just oh, okay, you're going through this. All right, well, try these exercises, and then kind of like push you along. So for people who are on the fence about therapy, how would you address them to kind of help them make that decision either way?
In terms of the latter part of what you said, that's not my experience in terms of some type of cookie cutter approach to therapy. My interventions and support with each client is customized and very personalized on a very deep personal level. I guess I invest so much time in each client. I I literally walk away from each session sometimes drained emotionally because I'm pouring so much of myself into connecting with and trying to provide the support that the clients need. Yeah, are there some therapists like in any profession? You have good ones and you have not so good ones, I'm sure. But I would just say each person should pursue therapy on their own terms, come into therapy and have their own experience and let them be the judge in terms of whether or not therapy is effective. In terms of, like you say, costs, some therapists are very costly. Some are not so much in terms of cost. Obviously, if you have insurance, that's great. Unfortunately, as you guys know, we have a big health crisis in this country because
Mm-hmm.
there's not enough affordable health care in
Right.
terms of people with low means. And so that's something that has to get corrected. Everyone in this country should be entitled to affordable health care and affordable therapy. And
Mm.
so I agree with you. It can be costly, but sometimes if you can't afford a therapist, if you could find someone in your community or someone within your social group that could refer you to someone that could be a good listener, who could give you some advice that is practical, that is helpful. That could go a long way rather than you just languishing yourself trying to figure out how to deal with your problems. Early in my life, when I was growing up in DC, as I said, as a poor black kid with no dad and grandparents and with a fourth grade education, surrounded by drugs and crime, I didn't have a therapist. I had my uncle who was a mentor. I had the basketball coach in high school. I had the teachers who took me under their wing. I had Mr. Joe down the street who was kind of like a positive role model. All those people served as surrogate therapists because they had sage advice and wisdom, and I just had to be available to listen to what they had to say. And one of the things I'll say, like what I have kids in therapy sometimes, some kids as young as 6 and 7
Wow.
who are very dysregulated, and they come to me and I tell them, I say, when you're dysregulated and you're confused and don't know what to do, what does Mr. Webster want you to do in terms of getting help? And they laugh and they say, you want me to borrow an adult's brain? And when I say, yeah, and some people think, hold on, how is this 6 year old going to borrow an adult's brain? They're going to go take their brain out their head? No, I want you to go to an adult. And do I want you to go to any adult? No, not any adult. Find an adult that is smart, got some common sense, who you can go to, and that adult, you're going to borrow their wisdom, their insight, their knowledge, and they're going to help tutor you, mold you, educate you, talk you through difficult times. That's what a good type of therapist do. That's what a good mentor does. That's what a good friend does. So I would say to someone who can't afford therapy, find someone with some sage advice, wisdom, who you can go to, borrow their brain. But if you're floundering in life and you don't have the answers, then you got to find someone who can give you not bad answers, good answers. Find the right person, because the wrong person could steer you in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because for me, I've been fortunate. Like you said, my mom introduced me to my first mentor, and that just started a whole cascade effect of me being able to talk to somebody who looked like me, who was able to understand my perspective, understand my background, what I've been through, and kind of offer some advice from that perspective. Where oftentimes we think of a therapist as just some old white guy with some glasses who's sitting in this, lounge chair, just writing some notes every now and then, looking up at you, just right. And
Yeah.
so having those role models at an early age made it normal to me to be able to go to somebody who's older and say, "Hey, look, I got this going on, and I got that going on. What's your thoughts and opinions on these things?" And then this person that you start establishing that relationship, you start, building up this trust to be able to start letting your guard down a little bit more. So now you're not so tightly bound up with that person or with your own emotions, saying, "Nah, I'll just keep it to myself. I'll just bottle it up and push it to the back of my mind. Push, oh, man up. I'm man up, man up." We hear that a lot of times, just man up. So, but yeah, as far as the therapist going, if you can't afford one, finding somebody who's a trusted elder, right? Back in the day, we used to have elders, right? You went to your elder, that person gave you the advice that you needed, and you kind of moved on. So, for the people who do want to go find a therapist, what are some channels and avenues that they can use? Like Psychology Today was one that I seen, but what are some other avenues for a person to go find that right therapist? And is the first therapist always going to be the right one?
The first therapist may not be the right one. One of the things I would say, and now more than ever, we have a diverse therapy cohort group of people nationally, internationally. Do we have enough people of color as mental health professionals? No. I've had people, the platform that I'm on called Sondermind, Sondermind. I've had people very specifically ask for a black male therapist. And it's interesting, one of my clients said when they were looking for a therapist and they found me, they said, "Man, finding you was like finding a unicorn on a tricycle." And I thought that was funny because they were saying it's just hard to find a black male therapist, and I didn't know it was that rare. But I guess it is, and it kind of reminded me when I worked in the school system as a male social worker for many years. When I would go to my staff meetings, it would be all these women, and it'd be just a handful of men as social workers because historically social workers weren't men. They were first in the beginning. They were, and back in the Jane Addams era, one of the founders, who were got social work started in Chicago. They were white women, and then over time, more black and brown people got into it. But I would go to the meetings and it would be a bunch of women and very few men because society doesn't view black men as nurturers, as carers, as sensitive souls who can attune to people's feelings in a very loving and soft way. Well, I got news for you. We are nurturers. We are attuned. We are carers. We are nurturers. We're fathers. We're mentors. We're educators. We're in the clergy. We're friends. Black men, the myth that we're this caricature that is so aggressive and out of touch with people's feelings, I don't buy into that. I know that my mentors were black men who were very patient, very kind, very considerate, very thoughtful. Yes, are there people, as there are in any race of people, who have some challenges emotionally with trauma and so forth? Yeah. But I would just say we got to break a lot of these stigmas and stereotypes, particularly from a race perspective, and not feed into it. But that's what you're doing tonight. Let's create opportunities and platforms to expose the more positive side of the black and brown culture in terms of the mental health space that we feel.
Wow, that was excellent said. So I got a couple questions just to close out. But for like the long term, for sustainable success requires long term mental. What advice do you have for entrepreneurs in terms of developing habits and mindsets that promote sustained mental health throughout their entrepreneurial journey?
In terms of sustaining any type of habit, to Alex's point about atomic habits, you have to
Mm,
start somewhere.
mm,
And if you guys familiar with the term neuroplasticity? Neuroplasticity is neurons that fire together, they strengthen together.
mm,
If you are thinking, feeling, and doing something, whatever it is, every day in and day out, for 365 days a year, you're, in terms of neuroplasticity, you are strengthening and wiring those habits in a very fixated, patternized way. So if you
mm,
want to undo bad habits, you got to start a new habit to replace those habits, but you have to do it in a way, and you have to be consistent every day. Well, if you have days where you fall off, that's okay. Get back on the horse and get back to the habit. If you do it enough, you're going to create a new habit. I was once 305 pounds. I got into the habit of walking every
Mm.
day as I've
mm.
gotten older. And then now, in the last, I guess, year, I've lost 25 pounds just
Wow.
walking. Today, I walk. It's cold as heck outside. I get out and I walk. And no matter how I feel, I will get out there and I walk. And I walk 3 to 4 miles a day. And in the
Mm,
beginning, it was drooling to get out there and walk 3 to 5. Because I didn't have the capacity or the stamina to do it. But every day I showed up and I said I had a goal. I want to lose the weight. It's good for my mental health. It's going to get my blood pressure down. It's going to make me feel better. And when I'm out there, and even the research shows, when you're out in green space, in
mm,
nature, walking around, you are creating a healthy environment that will lower your anxiety, lessen depression. They even say walking in green spaces is just as effective as taking an antidepressant. So
mm,
it's a great way to answer your point, Demille. Start somewhere, create small habits, and then each day they'll just keep multiplying like compound interest on the penny. You just keep doing it every day. Before you know it, within, I guess, a month and a half, 6 weeks
mhm,
or so, you created a habit, because
mm,
you neuroplasticity is going to make it and entrench it in a way where you're going to do it. You're just going to wake up and do it without even forcing yourself to do it, because you got in a habit like anything else. That's what a habit is. You don't even have to think about doing it. You just do it.
okay. You got one last question, Alex?
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought up the green space because I myself, avid person who loves to just be out and about.
Mm,
And just a quick tidbit for people: if you're looking for new spaces to be in, go on Google Maps, right? Go into your area, zoom out just a little bit, and then type in the word attractions, right? You're going to start finding national parks, parks to walk and bike, and things that just to get out. And even if it's cold, I just went to the um, a place called Turkey Run Hill.
mm.
Beautiful place, very beautiful place.
I think I've
So,
heard of that before. Where is it?
man, it's in right by McLean, Virginia.
Okay.
So not only am I getting out to see that green space, but I'm also seeing abundance, right? I'm seeing these big houses and things that I can aspire to be,
Mm,
aspire to achieve, and aspire to have. So that now I can start setting those goals where we were talking about those people who are in the hood who may not see that. Like
mhm,
when we go to Baltimore,
mm,
bro, when we go to Baltimore, it's rough. Like you feel mentally drained, but when you go to these nicer, affluent areas, it makes you want to get there. So, to close this out, because I really appreciate everything that
Can
you
I
said.
jump in real quick, Alex?
Yeah, go ahead.
To your point, Alex, in the house I live in now, on my I got a vision board in this other space, and there's a picture of my wife and my kids when my kids were, I guess, 9 and 6, and we came out to Montgomery County and we took a picture in one of these multi-million-dollar houses. And my wife was like, "Why are you doing that?" I said, "Because I'm gonna get that house one day." And she was
Manifestation.
like, and her sister was like, "Why are y'all doing that? You'll never be able to achieve that." And I said, "Well, that's the very reason why you won't achieve it, because the
mm,
because the
Rejection.
Napoleon Hill says, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve." And I
mm,
believed it and I conceived it. And guys, I've achieved it. The
Mm.
same house of the same sort that we came out and looked at when my son now is 32, that we looked at, that's the type of house I live in today. everything that I had a vision, even the Bible says, where there's no vision, the people perish. The
Mm.
things that I envisioned, that I, even my book that I showed you, I envisioned writing a book. Remember what I told you. I was a failing student in high school, barely made it out of high school, couldn't write a lick. I've written two very well received books that
Mm-hmm.
people go, man, this is amazing. Like, I can't believe, this book has changed my life. Like, if I was to go back to that person in high school and show you my writing, you laugh at me if I said I was going to write two books and be on Oprah Winfrey show and live in $1 million house and have a son who went to Harvard University. My son, out of the hood of DC, went to Harvard University. He
Wow.
graduated in
Mm.
2013 as the all-time winningest basketball player in Harvard history. The Harvard Crimson newspaper wrote that
Uh,
Christian Webster, not only will he be remembered for what he did on the basketball court, but what he will be remembered for is the amazing commitment he made to the greater Harvard community. His character and his values, his quiet leadership made a difference and made his team better and made the whole Harvard University community better. Guys, that's what and I'm not saying this to brag. I'm just saying I was one of those kids that people said he going to jail, he ain't going to amount to this, he's
mm.
not going to do that. I married my high school sweetheart. We've been together for over 40 years. We've gone
Wow.
through everything under the sun. I could write a Tyler Perry movie about my book. You wouldn't even believe the stuff I went through. Man, we still together. All of my kids earn college scholarships to some of the
Mm.
best universities in the world:
Mm.
George Washington, Quinnipiac, Harvard. And I say that not to brag. I say that because I'm proud. Because I didn't have a father. My mother wasn't around. My grandfather only had a fourth grade education. Most of my friends I grew up with, they're dead. They're
Mm.
dead.
Wow.
They didn't make it to 50 because of
Mm.
the trauma that they went through in the neighborhood that we came up. A lot of them died a long time ago because the research shows trauma that doesn't get healed, that doesn't get addressed, it can manifest in ways where it creates all types of maladaptive behaviors. If you look up the ACEs study, Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, I've lived through those environments. My friends, the ones who had four or more ACEs, they're not here anymore because
Mm.
the ACEs impacted their health. They developed cancer. They smoked too much. They drank too much. They had all types of health issues, or they committed crimes. They just did all types of things. Not because they were bad people. It's because the trauma that they had, they never got it worked through it with the proper channels. I was the fortunate one. I had
Mm.
mentors. I had friends. I had outlets. I was able to open up, learn what a book was, and read it. And it took me to a whole nother place in my life, and it opened doors for me. And I took that same lessons from mentors and family members, and I poured it into my kids because I said, this is where the intergenerational trauma stops. It stops
Mm.
at me. I'm not going to let my kids grow up another generation of being without a father like I was, regardless of what me and my wife went through. I said, I'm going to stay with this woman, and we're going to show these kids what a black family is all about. And
Mm.
I've done
I
that.
love that.
And I'm
I
so
love that.
proud of that. And I'm really proud of that.
Mm.
Yeah, and like you said, with the power of the vision, did the same thing. It's like we were able to just to see those things, and I was told that at a young age. Like, yo, if you want it, go touch it, go see it, go visit it, take a picture. You got to be around that thing. And years later, I bought my dream car, and I was just so thankful for that moment. But I know I want to respect your time. We want to respect your time. So, where can people find your books? Can get in touch with you, and then I'll let Demille have the last word on it.
Yeah. My book, where is it? Oh, my book is on Amazon. If you go to Amazon.com, you can purchase this book. It's a great book. I have this throngs of people who've written to me saying this book changed their lives. They were so inspired by what I had to offer. It's this is a wonderful thing in terms of how people have been so receptive to this book. So Amazon, they could get the book. In terms of therapy, anyone want to reach out to me? I'm on a platform called Sondermind, Sondermind. In the weeks to come, my TED Talk will be published. I will be putting the
Mm.
link out to my TED Talk that I did with TEDx Foggy Bottom, titled "What Can Depression Teach You?" I really want people to go check that out. I just think, guys, we're coming up to a new year, 2024. Why
Hmm.
not make a change? Why not those who are listening to this podcast say to themselves, no more, no more, no more. I'm going to get unstuck. I've been stuck in this very dysfunctional, stressed out life where I haven't gone anywhere for years. I need to reach out to the people and places and get myself unstuck and get myself to a place of, instead of languishing, to thriving and succeeding. It's out here, guys. It's out here. I'm living proof that it can happen. Because everything that went on in my earlier life indicated I shouldn't be where I am today.
Hmm.
And so, by the grace of God and the people who poured into me, the village, as they say, I'm here. And we need more people to step up nowadays, because nowadays and never, you guys know, you turn on the news any given night, these
Mm-hmm.
some of these kids are wilding out. And it's not because they're kids who are animals or whatever. They're kids who are unloved, unsupported, and not given the right guidance and support they
Mm.
need. They have the potential. They just need people to help them know that they have
Mm.
the potential.
And a
Two
creative
two two
outlet. Yep.
sayings that two sayings I use in the mental health space. One is, instead of saying what happened to these kids, they say what's wrong. I mean, instead of saying what's wrong with these kids, say what happened to them. Instead of saying what's wrong
Mm.
with these kids, say what happened to them, because that's what really happened. And then when it comes to kids who are being emotionally neglected, who have all these aberrant, dysfunctional ways, it's not what happened to them, it's what didn't happen for them. In other
Mm.
words, their family and their environment didn't give them the emotional regulation to be able to process their emotions, make good decisions, and so they're going through life without that type of emotional support, understanding how to regulate and how to make proper decisions. Guys, we need a change. We need a change. And it has to look in the mirror. It all starts with just one person. One
Mm.
person plus one person can make a difference. We could change this thing. It's about your attitude, guys.
Yeah, and I just bought your book, so I'm excited.
Oh, thank you, Alex. Thank you so much, man. I
Hey man,
appreciate
y'all
that.
gotta commit, man. You gotta commit. It's
Exactly.
faithful without works.
Exactly. And we're definitely going to be on the lookout for that TED talk. Uh, Thank you, Daryl, for gracing us with your time,
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
your wisdom, your gems. This was very thought provoking, informative, and it was very inspiring.
Impactful.
Honestly,
Yeah.
your story is very inspiring, and that is the goal: is to get more young people more outlets for healing instead of
Yeah. And let me say
being
this.
destructive. Go ahead.
And let me say this to you. Thank you, Alex and Demille. I've watched some of your podcasts, and you guys are doing an amazing job. I wish
Thank
more people would go to your podcast and support you guys, because you guys are the next generation, and you guys are invested in what you're doing. You're educating people. Your podcast should be up there with the rest of them, and you have to see your podcast up there amongst the best. Because don't put your go back to what I said earlier. Don't compare yourself with other people's podcasts and what they're doing. Stay in your lane. There's a saying. I forget the author of the saying, but I love it. The saying is this: what is it that you can do
Mm.
that's not going to get done in this lifetime unless you do it just because of who you are? I repeat, what is it that you can do that's not going to get done in this lifetime unless you do it just because of who you are? Guys, I've impacted thousands of lives in my 30 plus year career. Okay? Those are the
you.
people I was able to change because who I am. There are people that Alex are going to touch in this world that I can't touch. I'm not Alex. I don't have that Alex touch. There are people Damiel is going to touch just because of who you are. I'm not Damiel. You guys got to go out there and find your tribe, because there's a whole tribe of people out there that will resonate with your stories, your mission, and everything that you bring to this space in terms of wanting to change people's lives. And so I thank you, young people, both for what you do, and don't ever give up in what you're doing. Just keep moving ahead.
Thank you, thank you.
Yo, the bars just keep coming. Hey, I'm gonna let you go, Daryl,
Go home.
because it is it's time to get late. But thank you for your time, and yeah, do you have any closing words before we go?
The only thing I can say is I have this little wall. I guess it's not a poster. I have it on my. It's a quote by Winston Churchill,
Mm-hmm.
and this is a great way to close out. And this goes for whatever you're going through. We all go through stuff, guys. Nobody, I mean, there's some people out here, yeah, they got a lot of money, but I don't care. Money doesn't make you immune from stress and challenges in life. I just want you to
Preach.
just think about what Winston Churchill said when the world was at war during World War II, and London was getting bombed, and had the U.S. and the Allies given up, the whole world would be different. We all would be speaking German, but people didn't give up. And Winston Churchill said this: never, never give up.
Mm,
Never, never give up. I don't care what you're going through, folks. Never, never give up. There is
mm,
hope on the other side when you don't give up. And when you have the faith that there's someone out there and you reach out with a desire to be changed, the universe will give you the right tools and support you need. But it starts with the right attitude.
mm.
Guys, good night. I thank you for your time, and God
Thank
bless you
you,
Thank
both.
you.
thank you, thank you.
All right.
God
Thank
bless.
you.
For
All
another
right.
episode of
Good night.
OPM.
Night.
Sheesh.